Accounts from World War I from a lieutenant. Gas, gas, quick boys, an ecstasy of fumbling, trying to fit the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone was yelling out and stumbling, and under a green sea, I saw him drowning. A vile and incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not say with such high zest. To children ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. The preceding quote is an excerpt from the poem Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen, a lieutenant in World War I. The poem's title is a Latin phrase which translates to "It is sweet and fitting to die for one's country." The author of the poem, Owen, constantly wrote of the horrors of World War I and the chemical weapons used in it. Chemical weapons, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Resources, are any chemical substance used to inflict bodily harm or injury. And although chemical weapons have been utilized for centuries, its use has progressed over time. And although I am not an expert in this subject, it is quite apparent that chemical weapons are becoming a clear part of today. Thus, it is very important for everyone to know, 1, a history of chemical weapons, 2, the types of chemical weapons, and 3, how they apply to us today. To illustrate my first point, I'll go into a brief history of chemical weapons. Chemical weapons, according to Harold Mass's article published in the Week magazine, September 7, 2015, dates back to the ancient Greeks and Mongolians, but peaked in use in roughly the 20th century during World War time. Getting back to the ancient use of chemical weapons, the ancient Greeks, specifically the Athenians, were notorious for poisoning the wells of Spartan territory to kill a vast amount of people in a short amount of time. Moving on to the Mongolians, the leader of the Mongolian army, Genghis Khan, in 1200 AD, often would throw burning sulfur into enemy cities, hoping that the toxic gases would poison the inhabitants. And although these examples of chemical warfare are not necessarily refined, chemical warfare became increasingly sophisticated by the turn of the 20th century. In 1915, chlorine gas attacks first became in use after being pioneered by a scientist named Fritz Haber. They were used by German troops against Allied troops in World War I. The soldiers' accounts on the behalf of Allied troops said that the gases invoked a choking, guttering sensation, which correlates with the ideas of Owen. Moving on to my second point, the types of chemical weapons. Chemical weapons can be divided into 4 main categories: blister bombs, blood agents, nerve gases, and choking agents. For the purpose of this speech, I will specifically talk about the ones most frequently used in war: choking agents and nerve gases. Specifically with the nerve gases, these, according to the CDC, are the most deadly as they are tasteless and colorless and hard to detect. Nerve gases such as sarin, a gas concocted in 1938 Germany, often causes muscle spasms, convulsions, and even respiratory failure. Moving on to choking agents, which were most frequently used in World War I, these are no less deadly than nerve gases, despite being visible. Taking on a greenish-yellowish color, these choking agents mimic the effects of water when in the lungs. They essentially choke the victim. Now that you understand a history of chemical weapons and the types of chemical weapons, I will go to how it affects us today and how it applies to us. In light of recent events, although chemical weapons are more regulated than they were in the 20th century, use of chemical weapons still permeates through the system. In light of recent events, governments still use chemical weapons against its citizens, despite being banned in actual warfare, such as the United States and tear gas, which is banned in actual warfare, meaning we cannot use it against other countries, but we'll use it against our own citizens. Specifically regarding a recent event in Ferguson, Missouri, protesters were doused in tear gas by police when they were protesting police brutality. And thus, chemical weapons, although they are banned in warfare, they're still used on us. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, what does this have to do with me? I'm a minor. I'm a college student. I'm a citizen. This issue extends into the collegiate setting. And specifically, according to the Daily Californian article,